What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my week 3 college football power rankings. Let's get into it here. In my others receiving votes, I have four teams that all lost last week: Florida, Michigan, Arizona State, SMU, and then obviously Alabama losing week 1 to Florida State. They're here in the others receiving votes. Then Mississippi State, after a huge win over Arizona State, they go into my others receiving votes. And then Nebraska and Texas Tech also very close to getting in the top 25 this week. Dropping from my rankings are those five here. I had Bama ranked 25 last week, but just some other big wins vaulted them out of the top 25. Obviously, like I said, Florida, Michigan, Arizona State, SMU all losing. Um, Florida was probably the biggest loss spread wise. They were favored by 17 and a half and lost to USF at home. Arizona State goes on the road against Mississippi State and loses, favored by 6.5, and they lose by 7. Michigan goes on the road to face Oklahoma, and unfortunately, it just didn't turn out their way as they couldn't really do too much on offense besides one long run. And then SMU, heartbreaker at home against Baylor. Um, Unfortunately, it just didn't go their way. A high scoring game, 48-45. They lost in double overtime, but one missed kicked, and who knows how this could have turned out if SMU would have made that kick. 25 through 21. Now, you can put anybody, I think, at 25 or 24 at this point in the season, just because a lot of teams are playing good football. But I have Georgia Tech. I think that this team escaping Colorado in Colorado week 1 gets the nod for me. And we'll get to see, because if they win this week, then they're definitely going to be in the top 25 next week if they can beat number 12 Clemson. But if they lose, more than likely they're going to fall out. But Haynes King and company have to put on a good showing to get the respect they deserve at home this week. Auburn, Jackson Arnold destroy Ball State, and I expect another big win for them against South Alabama. Utah is looking great. They were outside my rankings coming into the year, but I knew at some point they would enter just because of the history of Utah football. Last year, I think, was a fluke of a year, lots of turnover, didn't have consistency, injury prone with Cam Rising. But this year, Utah looks really good. They go to Wyoming this week, and I think they're going to destroy them. Louisville at 22, they stay put. Struggled against James Madison early, but when it mattered most late in the game, they took care of business to get that win. And they're off this week before they start ACC play. Missouri, I think the nation's going to start to realize that this is going to be a very good football team. Bo Prabula obviously had a great game against Kansas and Jalen Daniels. They win at home, restoring the rivalry. The border wars, I think, is what it's called. And Missouri looked really good. Now they get Louisiana at home this week before they start SEC play. And Missouri, I think, is going to be that team maybe in a month from now that might be cracking the top 10. 20 through 16. Now you got Indiana staying put at 20 over a big win over Kennesaw State. So they get Indiana State at home there. Not much to report there, just doing what they should do at this point in the season. Florida State, I'm moving them up even more. Last week, I wanted to see how they were, obviously beating Bama at home. I want to see how they responded this week. Maybe didn't have too much of a letdown. It was a close win, but no. They scored 11 touchdowns in this game, destroying East Texas A&M. I know it's a FCS school, but you still got to come out and put up those points. And they did. Tommy Castellanos, I think he was done by the end of the third quarter. Florida State looks really good right now, and that's obviously a good sign for those fans. Texas A&M beats Utah State, but no one's really talking about that. They're talking about this week's game in Notre Dame, looking to get revenge for last year. And if this Aggies team can go and do that, they're going to be a top 10 team. BYU at 17, they fall 2 spots after not really converting when it mattered for this team. I think this could have been a bigger blowout, but they had a lot of field goals in this one. But BYU did take care of business at home, only allowing Stanford to 3 points. Last week, they didn't allow any points to, I think it was Portland State. So through 8 quarters of play, this BYU defense has only allowed 3 points. And then South Carolina at 16. I'm dropping them 3 spots because it wasn't a very convincing loss against SC State. I know there was a delay in there, but this week I think we're going to really find out how good this South Carolina team is, because Vanderbilt is a resilient team. They don't care who they play, where they play it. They're going to come in and give their best football. And I think that's going to be one of the better games of the week. 15 through 11. Rocco Beck and company beat Iowa at home for the first time. I think it was since 2017, I think it was 15, somewhere along those lines. But they keep on finding ways to win ball games, so they're moving up 4 spots for me. Oklahoma, like I said, they were another team that was just on the fringe of making a top 25 preseason, and obviously they did now. Obviously, with this team, John Mateer, and company against that Michigan defense, limited them to 0 points in the first half. They put them away late in the fourth, and Mateer looks really good in this offense under Brent Venables, and that's why they're here at 14. USF keeps on winning huge games, 18 to 16 on the road against Florida in Gainesville as the time expires. So they're not only just getting my top 25, but they are in the top 15. I put them at 13 here, and they get even another tough challenge, even tougher at Miami this week. They're 2-0, should say 2-0 there instead of 1-0. They're 2-0 in the American Conference, and right now, as this moment, probably everyone's pick to be that group of five team that makes the playoff. Illinois at 12 went into Duke. I think a lot of people thought that game was going to be close. It was a 2.5, 3 point spread around almost all sports books. And what did they do? They just came in and dominated. Early, it was a close one, but I think once they finally got their rhythm, Luke Altmaier really played well in this one against Duke, and then they returned home against Western. Should move to 3-0 before they start Big Ten play. Ole Miss struggled early in this one against Kentucky, but they found it late. And you got to escape and get wins when you can, especially Ole Miss, because this team has had history of losing these games. Like last year, they lost to Kentucky at home late in the season, which pretty much, if not eliminated them from playoff contention. Now they get Arkansas this week, and I think that's going to be another early test for them. And I like how this Ole Miss team has, because they have the lower end of the SEC schedule to begin the year to really kind of get them into SEC play, and I think that's only going to help them down the road. Now, 10 through 6, I think you can arrange any of these teams in any order, and maybe a few fan bases will be upset, but I have Clemson at 10. Struggled against Troy. They were down, I think it was 14-0 at this point, or it was maybe 13-0, and they were resilient. Cade Klubnik and company came back to win this one, but I have big concerns for this Clemson team heading into Georgia Tech this week. It's a tough place to play. Obviously, Georgia Tech's one of the better teams in the ACC, and you're going to their building. Clemson is definitely on upset alert for me. That Tennessee Georgia game, obviously I have them 8-9 in an AP poll that just came out. They have it should be the other way around. They have Georgia at 6 and Tennessee at 15. I don't know how these two teams are going to fare, but going into Neyland is always a tough challenge this early in the season when Tennessee is playing some really good football. So obviously game day is going there, and that'll be the best game of the week. But it's going to come down to the arms of Joey Aguilar and Gunnar Stockton. Whoever can throw the ball better, I think is going to win this game. Because Tennessee and their offense has really struggled to throw the ball these last few years. Aguilar and company, they look really good, putting up 72 on an FCS team, while Georgia only put up 28 at home. So there is some concern there for Georgia, not really blowing teams out, but this is typical Georgia. They could walk into Neyland and win that game 23-21, and no one would be surprised. At 7, I have Oregon, and really I could probably put them above Notre Dame at this point in the season just because they're 2-0, but they destroyed Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. Obviously, the comments earlier in the week about the NIL funds and this and that, but putting up 69 on a Power 4 school at home who, in recent years has been very good, really shows me that this Oregon team is going to be very good this year. Now they face Northwestern in their first Big Ten game this year at Northwestern. I expect them to probably be favored at least around 3 touchdowns and a field goal, if not 4 touchdowns, and probably walk out of there with a 5 touchdown victory. Then Notre Dame at 6. I have them dropping back one spot just because some other teams are playing better right now. And it's make or break already for Notre Dame. If they go 0-2 to start the year, they have to win out to even have a chance at the playoff, because obviously they're not in the conference. But this is a must-win game for Notre Dame. It's like I said, if they don't, who knows if this team's making the playoff this year. Then 5 through 1, you get 2 SEC teams, 2 Big Ten teams, and an ACC team here. I'll start at 5 with Penn State. Finding ways to win games. It wasn't a pretty one, even though they scored 34. It was just a slow game that they slowly built that lead and eventually won this one 34-0. But a win's a win. The offense is starting to click. The defense looks great. And I expect the kind of same result here this week against Villanova. Miami gets probably one of the tougher teams in college football to play right now. If you were ranking a teams not to play list, I think USF would be in the top 3 right now. Obviously, Miami destroyed Bethune Cookman, I think it is. Carson Beck played great. But like I said, USF at home, a lot of eyes are going to be on this game because that group of 5, probably the favorite to go to the playoff, like I mentioned earlier. Miami's got to show out in this one. I know they beat Notre Dame at home, but can they do the same thing? Because now this win, if they can beat USF, is going to look even better on their resume moving forward. At 3, you have Texas. Arch Manning played really good in this one. A good response after the disappointment, I guess you could say, against Ohio State. I expect another same result against UTEP. Should destroy them. Texas more than likely moves to 2-1 before they start SEC play. Then LSU. This was an anticipated early game in the year to be a huge ranked matchup, but Florida now obviously losing to USF drops out of the rankings. LSU stays at number 2 here in my rankings. It wasn't a pretty win against Louisiana Tech, but a win's a win. This LSU team is going to be legit, and if they can win this game against Florida, they're pretty much telling Florida to kick rocks the rest of the year because they're going to be 1-2 with a tough schedule moving forward. Same for LSU though. They can't just think, oh, Florida's, lost that game last week. This team might be out of it. Um, they got a chip on their shoulder for the rest of the year because they know they have to win and win now. So that LSU Florida game is going to be a good one. Then Ohio State took care of Grambling State 70-0. It's Jeremiah Smith. I got his name right this time. Didn't confuse him and Ryan Williams. Those two, him and obviously Julian Sayin are on a good page right now as they had a good day last week. This Ohio game, I think, could be a little bit of a challenge in the first half, but I think they'll pull away late because Ohio last week beat West Virginia at home, kept it close with Rutgers on the road in week 1. So I hope they're not going to overlook this Ohio team because they are a very good team. If the spread's around 5 touchdowns or more, I would probably take the Ohio spread just because they're a very competitive team and they play good football out there in the MAC, and it's one of the better MAC teams. But obviously, it's still Ohio State. They should cruise to a victory. That's going to be it for my week 3 power rankings. Check back next week to see where your favorite team ranks. Until then, the Bench Buddies are out.